Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everyone. Woof. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is my daughter Indigo is behind the camera. Is going to ask the questions that you've asked, and I'm going to do my best to answer them in as few words as possible.
Because you ramble. So the most common question is, how much does it cost to live in the van?
Cost is of everyone's interested in cost. So it can cost you $600 a month, or it could cost you $6,000 a month. It all depends on how much money you have. Know your budget at home. Be a good budgeter. If you don't budget well at home, you're not going to budget well on the road. Okay, post-editing kit. It probably cost me about $800 a month, and that includes a night in a motel. There are three basic areas for expenses on the road. One is your cost of accommodation. It can be free. There's lots of free camping in the southwest part of the United States, and actually all across the United States, but the southwest in particular is warm, and people can live down here all year for free on BLM land, forest land. This part of the world has lots of great free camping. The second part is gas. You don't actually have to go very far. If you're on BLM land, you can go every 14 days, which is the rule. Leave BLM land and go to other BLM land. Maybe it's only 40 or 50 miles away. Maybe it's only 25 miles away. So you can spend very little on gas. The other part is food. If you're used to spending $100 a week on food, you're probably going to want to continue that. The biggest factor in changing what you spend is whether or not you make food in your van or in your vehicle, or whether you use convenience food. Just like at home, the more convenience food and the more times you eat out, the more expensive it's going to be. Okay, what I'm trying to say about food is that our habits are pretty ingrained, and our budgets are pretty ingrained too. If we're used to spending $100 a week on food, we'll probably continue. If we're used to spending $100 a month, that will probably continue to be our norm. Another piece around cost is health insurance for people who are traveling from Canada. It's about $100 a month. So phone around, get some quotes, but if you want to get safely back home, if you get sick or get treated here, you're going to want health insurance. Have a slush fund. Have as much of a slush fund as you can. A slush fund is just like an emergency fund. Have as much as you can. Those are your biggest costs. Okay, just a couple more thoughts about cost. Fuel for your cooking or heating, ice if you need it, showers. Those things are not usually costs at home, so you'll have to factor those in. Other cost-saving measures. If you happen to have a home base, you'll want to look at all the ways you can cut back. Renting a room, subletting your house, canceling your Netflix account, disconnecting your TV, like those kinds of things.
So another question that a lot of people asked was, how did you get over your fear of van camping alone?
I'd say that for me personally, I lived rurally for a lot of years, and I did a fair amount of camping, although it was in paid campgrounds. But I was more comfortable with like sleeping on the ground and hearing animal noises and being out under the stars. I realize, especially from Facebook and from blogging, that a lot of, especially the women who are contacting me, have never really spent time outdoors. They've lived in the city their whole lives, and I think that's the biggest transition, is getting comfortable in nature. At first you feel like really separate and really much like a visitor, and you kind of don't know the rules. And after a while, you just start to feel like you're part of it. And then you're not so afraid anymore.
Do you have a plan when you're heading out on an adventure, or do you kind of just wing it?
I'm all wings these days. I'm all wings and no plan. So when I started out, I went from reservation to reservation in campgrounds, and I needed to do that. It was a really important part of becoming acclimatized to not being in a house and feeling safe. I liked the feeling of somebody being at the gate. And now, Yeah, I hardly ever pay for camping, and I don't need someone to be at the gate anymore. I'm pretty happy out here without a gate.
Okay, next question.
Okay.
Is there anything you didn't think of to bring with you at first, but turned out to be very important?
No, and I think most people that I've talked with have gone through a very similar process. We think as human beings in modern culture that we need everything for every situation, and we don't. I think I've just been mostly like throwing things off the boat so that I can sail more smoothly. This is really a stripping down process rather than finding the new things that are going to help you. There is a whole world of stuff out there you can buy, like specialty items, to make this life like work. Well, I found out it's actually the opposite. I don't need any of those things plus some of the things I thought I needed.
So Corinne asked, what are those basic things that you do need specifically for bedding, cooking, and clothing?
So I have a good duvet. I don't use a pillow. I just kind of like wrap up my coat if I need a pillow. Cooking? Oh, what have I been saying? A pot, a pan, and one good knife. That's pretty much it.
Clothing?
Yeah, I wear clothes most of the time. When it's warm, I wear tank tops. When it's cold, I put on a sweater.
What else do you want?
I got it. I'm on it. Okay, a couple more notes about clothing because I kind of oversimplified it. So I use a lot of thrift stores. So I'll rotate my clothes, I'll donate back and get clothes I need when the weather changes. And I have too many shoes. Yeah, I have to be honest about that. I've got way too many shoes.
So Debbie's wondering, have you been sick on the road? And if so, what did you do?
Okay, I have not been sick on the road. Seriously ill. I have had, a good throat infection and a bad cold. And both times it led me to want to take a motel for a couple of nights. And I did that. I had emergency money set aside. But if I was really sick, there's a couple of things. So if you have health conditions, write all those things down. Have them in your visor. Do some emergency planning so that if you were sick on the road and you needed help, you making it easier for people to help you. And go closer to other people. Like instead of boondocking way out, boondock way in. Find a couple people to hook up with. Or park in a state, if you can afford to go to a state park, stay in a state park where there's washrooms and there's somebody, at the office and you've got an address in case anybody needs to come and be a support to you. That's really important. I know when I feel sick, I need to be closer to people, and getting a motel helps me to feel safer that way.
All right, we've got a couple speed round questions regarding van life. Yep. How many kilometers are on the van?
Currently, there's just over 90,000, and I have a warranty for all the parts and service up to 100,000. I started at 49 kilometers when I bought it.
Do you have roadside assist?
I do. It's part of the warranty, and then once the warranty is gone, I'll get CAA, which is the Canadian equivalent to AAA, AAA, I think they call it.
What do you do about mail on the road?
So I think I stopped receiving most of my mail 5 years ago. So I converted all of my bills and all of my correspondence to email anyway. But I do have an address in Canada, and I have somebody who can look into the mailbox every once in a while and tell me if there's anything important there.
And how do you pick your sites when you get to the land where you're going to stay for the night? How do you choose where you'll actually park your car and set up camp?
Right. Okay. Well, this has been an evolution as well. So I have a couple of favorite apps that I use that I'll write for you. One of them is All Stays, the other is Overlander, and there's freecampsites.net. Typically what I'll do is I'll know which direction I'm going in, and about an hour before I want to, kind of call it a day, if I'm traveling, I will just look and see what's in the area and go. But I want to say that what's happened is I used to have all these really intense criteria around what I wanted, and now I've learned to enjoy things that are less than what I would think of as perfect. But I also now I don't always need an app. So when I hit a national forest, sometimes there's an office, sometimes it's really obvious where the campsites are. So I'll just find something by instinct.
A lot of people had questions about community. And I'm assuming this comes from also a space of you're a solo traveler and you do most of your traveling alone.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with a lack of consistent friends while you're on the road?
Right. I haven't had to deal with that, is how I deal with it. So I have, I think, more friends now at this stage in my life than I've ever had. And my friends back home, they haven't gone away. You know, they're there. We've already lived apart from one another across the country, or, I mean, I've never lived right next door to my best friends. So it's very easy to keep in touch with them in the same way I always have. But I think the thing that changed for me, I came onto the road having no concept of there being a community at all, and certainly not a women's community. And once I got out here, people started telling me about gatherings that were happening for people who were living this lifestyle. And I went to the Rubber Tramp Rendezvous and discovered that there were thousands of people who enjoy this lifestyle. And then further, that there were women who were gathering together to create communities.
Do you ever feel lonely?
No, I never feel lonely. It's been more challenging this year to find solo time, honestly, than it has been to get together with people. That part's really easy now.
This is sort of a big question, and maybe this will be sort of our last question. What brought you to this life?
I came to a certain point in my life where something needed to change. So I'd had an injury. It was both physical and psychological. And I think, as many women do, sort of at midlife, there is a reevaluation of everything about your life, what's important, and you start to let things fall away that aren't important. And maybe you're doing that to save yourself, you know, psychologically, maybe spiritually, you you need something. I needed to get closer to nature, and I needed to learn to let go of control, because I think for a lot of people, anxiety will lead to the need to control things. And if you don't find a way to cope with that, you can become tied up really tightly in the need to control. And I needed to let go of that. And this seemed to be the way to do it. And I find nature very soothing and very healing. So it didn't take me very long to realize, like, I don't live on the road. I live in nature. My van, people say, how do you live in your van? It's like, I don't live in my van. Yeah, I sleep in my van. I cook at my van. It is my cocoon. But mostly I spend time in nature. And the more I did it, the more my nervous system felt like recalibrated. I felt more relaxed. I just felt like I could breathe.
All right, so that kind of wraps up the questions that people posted on Facebook. I'm going to ask 2 questions to finish up this Q&A. What are 3 pieces of advice that you would want to give someone who's maybe thinking about trying to live in their van, or even people who are already on the road?
My first piece of advice is, don't take anyone's advice. Don't listen to what anybody says, including me, about what you need or don't need. This is not an exercise in doing something right. This is an exercise, this path has been an exercise in letting go of what you think is right, what I think is right, and learning to listen to my own instinct, discovering my own unique, what do I need? And only I can answer that. And it is only having the space and time to explore it that allows me to do that. So don't take anybody's advice. Someone tells you need this much solar, don't listen to them. Or like, what kind of bedding I need is not what kind of bedding you need. So don't take anyone's advice. Use this as an opportunity to deeply know yourself. That makes me want to cry. But yeah, that tells me that it's the most important thing that's happened. The deepest thing that's happened to me is that I have become, in the quiet, I've learned to hear my own voice. That's my advice. Listen for your own voice. Woohoo! We're testing the video. Does the video work? How is the sound with the video?
The video totally works.
Did it?
Oh, jeez. Are you okay?
not work. Abort video.